the three historical events or persons that has impacted society and the education system that I will discuss in my presentation are Homer Plessy, 1896, Maria Montessori, 1911, and Title IX of 1972. Homer Plessy was a racially mixed shoemaker who was best known as the plaintiff in the landmark U.S. Supreme Court case Plessy versus Ferguson. Plessy was 7/8 white, but he still was identified as African American. His complexion made him look white. Segregation existed back then. To fight against segregation, he agreed to take part in an act of civil disobedience. In 1892, Homer Plessy sat in an all-white rail car in protest to the new Louisiana Separate Car Act. He was arrested for refusing to sit in the section on the train for blacks. He was arrested for violating the 1890 Louisiana Separate Car Act. The Louisiana Separate Car Act made it legal to separate common car carriers. He took the case to court claiming that the arrest was unconstitutional due to the 14th Amendment because it violated the 13th Amendment, which prohibited slavery, and because it denied Plessy the equal protection under the law. Plessy lost in court in 1893. In 1898, he appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court and lost as well. The court stated that separate but equal doctrine made it legal to separate the blacks in public places, drinking fountains, restrooms, transportation, restaurants, and education. The significance of Plessy versus Ferguson was that the court ruled that separate but equal facilities were constitutional. As a result of Plessy versus Ferguson, racial segregation had continued for the past half century. This ruling allows segregation on trains and buses, as well as in hotels, theaters, and schools. The educational impact that Plessy had was that due to segregation, the hopes and dreams of Black people seemed almost unattainable until 58 years later. In 1954, the Supreme Court reversed Plessy versus the Board of Education. It declared racial segregation in public schools were unconstitutional. This ruling was applied to other public facilities. Schools and societies are no longer segregated. The next person I will be talking about is Maria Montessori. Maria Montessori was an Italian physician, educator, and innovator known for her educational methods that build on the way children learn naturally. She founded the Montessori theory. She opened the first Montessori school in Rome on January the 6th, 1907. She worked, wrote, and spoke for children with special needs. The 5 Montessori principles or theories are: children are shown respect. This is the major principle underlining the entire Montessori method. 2, kids have absorbent minds. 3, sensitive periods are critical for learning. 4, kids learn best in a prepared environment. And 5, kids can teach themselves through auto education. The educational impact of Maria Montessori. Maria Montessori, the woman who changed education. Her educational method is in use today in many public schools and private schools globally. Children around the world have benefited greatly from Maria Montessori's contributions. According to a recent study, the Montessori method encouraged students to engage with education by their own devices. This educational approach leads to significant higher levels of motivation, interest, and responsibility in schoolwork. Private Montessori schools continue to thrive. There was no doubt that Maria Montessori was a pioneer woman of her time who pushed the boundaries of her gender and the education system as she understood it. In the United States, there are more than 5,000 private Montessori schools. The first Montessori school opened in New York in 1911. The Montessori curriculum is a unique educational method that has been changing the lives of children for over centuries. And my third event is the Title IX. Congress passed Title IX on June 8th, 1972. Title IX is best known for its role in gender equity in athletic and sexual harassment on campuses. Under the under Title IX of the Education Amendment of 1972 prohibits sex discrimination in education programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance. Before Title IX was passed, young women were not admitted into many colleges and universities. Athletics scholarships were rare for women. Math and science were only for boys. Girls could not play sports. Women could become teachers and nurses, but they could not become principals and doctors. There were sexual harassment and discrimination against women. The effects of Title IX passing. It ensures equity between men and women in education, and it covers most K through 12 schools and colleges and universities, as well as vocational schools, libraries, and museums. It improves the sporting opportunities and resources available for women at both the high school level and at institutions of higher learning. An increase in the salaries of and other form of compensation for administrators and coaches of women teams. Title IX legislation eliminates sex-based discrimination to ensure all students, both male and female, have access and equality in education. 5 ways that Title IX changed education for the better. Number 1, both sexes takes the courses they want. 2, women earn more degrees. 3, and they also now become professors. 4, increase female participation in athletics. And 5, pregnancy is no longer an automatic career ender. This concludes my presentation.